children of Israel cried out because of their oppression, the Most High remembered the covenant he made with their forefathers. Moses was the man appointed to lead them out of bondage. In this sixth session of the series, Remembering the First Exodus, we want to look at the leadership traits of Moses and those called to lead Israel. So in the last session, we talked about the 3 signs that the Most High gave to Moses to convince the Israelites that he had been sent to lead them out of bondage. But Moses was resisting his call. He started making excuses for why he was not the right man for the job. Let's continue reading to see what happened. We're looking at Exodus 4:10 through 17. And here we see Moses really trying to get out of this assignment. So he says, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. So the Most High responds by telling him that he made man's mouth. He also made the mute, the deaf, the seeing, and the blind. And he tells him, go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what to say. But Moses offers up another objection. And he's saying, please send by the hand of whomever else you may send. In other words, send anybody else, not me. Please don't send me. So most of us, or those of us who have received a call, you can relate to this. Because your call left you shaking in your boots. The assignment just seemed so big, like impossible for you to do. But Moses' continued resistance caused Yah's anger to be kindled against him. So I want you to really think about what's happening here. The Most High has given him confirmation of who he is when he appeared to him in the burning bush. Then he gave him 3 signs to show the people, and Moses is still reluctant, which stirs Yah's anger. So he says to Moses, is not Aaron, the Levite, your brother? I know that he can speak well. And look, he is also coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. Now you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do. So he shall be your spokesman to the people. Are you all getting this? Moses was supposed to be speaking, not Aaron. Aaron became the mouthpiece because Moses did not want this assignment. So Aaron's role was advanced to a much higher level in the sight of the people when he became the spokesperson and he performed the signs. We're going to get to that shortly. But listen to this. When we don't do it Yah's way, we run into problems later on. And we're really going to dig into that as we get into this session. So Moses became as God to Aaron. He would receive the word and then he would give these words to Aaron to speak. And he says, and you shall take this rod in your hand with which you shall do the signs. Let's see what can happen when we don't do things the way he wants us to. In Numbers 12:1 through 13, we see a story of Miriam and Aaron coming against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman he had married. It said, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. Now, the Christian church has taught that they were upset because Moses married a black woman. But this incident has nothing to do with her skin color. It's a non-issue because we covered that in the last session, that Moses was also a black man. So whatever was going on, Miriam and Aaron made the issue about his wife. But at the heart of it all was jealousy and envy. And we see this as we continue reading, because they said, Moses isn't the only one the Most High has spoken through. Now, what does that have to do with the Ethiopian woman? But what was in their heart was exposed when they said, hasn't Yah spoken through us also? Did the Most High speak through them? Yes, he did. The implication here is that they wanted to usurp his authority, and we will see it in the way that the Most High responded to them. So why did they come against him in this way? Some would call it the sin of familiarity. And I'm not talking about familiar spirits. Here I'm talking about seeing someone through the eyes of the flesh and not the eyes of the spirit, because you are related to them or in a relationship with them. Moses was their little brother, and it appears that they did not respect his authority the way they should have. By the way that the Most High responded to them in Numbers 12:6-8, we can see that they were on very thin ice. He begins by saying, if there's a prophet among you, I make myself known to him in a vision, or I will speak to him in a dream, but not so with my servant Moses. Then the Most High goes on to say why Moses was chosen for this task. Moses was faithful. He says he is faithful in all my house. He tells us that he speaks to him face to face, and even plainly, not in dark saying. Moses was able to see the form of Yah. Can you even imagine that? He sees his form. So then he asks Aaron and Miriam, why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? So we see that Moses' wife was made to be the issue, but clearly it went deeper than that. Let's see how the Most High handled the situation. And this comes from Numbers 12:9-13. We see that the anger of the Most High was aroused against them. And it says, and when the cloud departed from above the tabernacle, suddenly Miriam became leprous, as white as snow. Now, we're not talking about her hand turning white like it did with Moses. She turned white as snow. So again, what color was she before her body turned white? And this is another confirmation that the issue Aaron and Miriam had with Moses was not because he married a black woman. What Aaron says next will let you know that he now understands what they did was sinful by coming against their brother. And I'm sure he also understands that his brother is operating at a higher level. And that had to be a very humbling experience, because listen to what he says. Oh, my Lord. He's now calling Moses Lord. Please do not lay this sin on us, in which we have done foolishly and in which we have sinned. Please do not let her be as one dead, whose flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb. Now, immediately, Moses stands in the gap and he begins to intercede for her, and he asks the Most High to heal her. Now, some say Miriam probably started this and that's why she was punished, but Aaron wasn't. But that's not true. If you read Numbers 16:8-11, you will see that Aaron reaped what he had sown. The same charge leveled against Moses was made against them when Korah and other men from his tribe, the tribe of Levi, wanted to usurp his authority. Moses basically challenged Korah and the other Levites who were with him and accused them of seeking the priesthood. So I encourage you to read that story, and you will see that the same thing Moses did when Miriam and Aaron came against him is what Aaron had to do when these men rose up against him. 250 men got swallowed up when the earth opened up. And then a plague broke out that killed 14,000 more before Aaron stood in the gap for them. So Aaron's response shows that he learned some things as time went on. And we can't diminish his role or the prophetic gift of Miriam, but clearly the way the Most High interacted with Moses was on a much higher level. And we cannot find a single instance of him behaving pridefully toward them, but the anointing on him was connected to his assignment. Could it be that it goes back to what we read in Exodus 4:14 through 17? When Moses kept resisting his call, here is what the Most High said. Is not Aaron, the Levite, your brother? I know that he can speak well. What's the trait he's acknowledging so far? He can speak well. As a result of Moses' resistance, Aaron is speaking the words Moses is supposed to speak, and he becomes the spokesman to the people. Do you think this elevated him in the eyes of the people? Well, let's see. This comes from Exodus 32:1 through 6. Now when the people saw that Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, Come, make us gods that shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. Could it be that the people saw him as having as much authority as Moses? And Aaron said to them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. So all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them to Aaron, and he received the gold from their hand. And he fashioned it with an engraving tool, and made a molded calf. So the wealth that they had just been blessed with is now being used to worship the pagan deity or a pagan deity that had just been overthrown in the land of Egypt. What does this say about Aaron's leadership capabilities? Does it tell you that he can be easily swayed, or maybe we see the same thing happening with him as it did with Saul, in that he feared the people more than he feared Yah? Whatever your thoughts are, is it not obvious that there was a reason he was not the one selected for the role? Let's go on. Then they said, This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt. Now listen to this. So Aaron, when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. He built the altar. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. Then they rose early on the next day, offered burnt offerings, and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Not only did he build the calf, he built an altar before it. He may have been able to hear the voice of Yah, and he may have had great speaking abilities, but did he have the heart of Yah? Yes, our ancestors were wrong for asking him to do this, but why didn't he tell them no? Again, when we don't do it Yah's way, we run into problems later. He is now standing before the people as a leader. And look at what he leads them into. So here's a lesson you need to learn about leadership. Leaders know the way They go the way and they show the way. They know the way because the vision is connected to their assignment, and they've learned some things in the process of time. They go the way because they set the example. It's hard to lead people to do things that you have not done. Finally, leaders show the way. Why? Because they have seen it. If you're called to lead, you have to know where you are going. So the Most High will show that to you in the beginning. That's what the vision is all about. This assignment was not supposed to be Aaron's. He was with Moses. He saw the plagues. He saw the people walk through the sea on dry land, and now we see him leading the people into idolatry. Another lesson, make your call and election sure, because if you don't, you will leave a lot of dead bodies behind you because you went before you were sent. Be willing to sit at the Master's feet and make your call and election sure. The gift that he has placed in you will be there when you are ready, but it will be the right time and the right season. After the people sinned, the Most High was ready to destroy them. He told Moses, "Go, get down, for your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them." Then he tells Moses what they did and what they said. Then he says, "Let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them." Now listen to this. "And I will make of you a great nation." Moses is told that a great nation would be made of him. What an offer. How many would have said, "Sounds good to me. They're all wicked and worthless people anyway." You know what this sounds like to me? A test. If it was, Moses passed it with flying colors, and I believe that the Most High knew that he would. Listen to how he responds. Moses begins by giving the glory back to Yah. He said, "Why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with a great power and with a mighty hand?" Do you see this? He's not confused about who these people belong to. This is where a lot of leaders fail. The people belong to Abba Yah. Moses also acknowledges that it's by your might, your power, your mighty hand that brought these people out. Then he says something that is significant. We can see that the Most High's honor is important to him. He said, "Why should the Egyptians speak and say, he brought them out to harm them, to kill them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth?" Do you see this? He doesn't want anyone speaking ill of Abba Yah. David did the same thing when Goliath started blaspheming. Then he begins pleading for the people. He stands in the gap as an intercessor. Why? Because he has the heart of a shepherd. He learned something in all of the years when he served on the backside of the desert, tending to his father-in-law's sheep. That was his training ground, among other things. So he's pleading for the Most High to turn from his wrath and to relent from harming his people. He's standing in the gap, you all. Moses steps into that role of a shepherd protecting the sheep. A shepherd is not going to do anything to hurt the sheep. A shepherd is one who tends. guards, and watches over a group of people or animals. Did Aaron think about what would happen to the sheep when he led them into idolatry? No. Then Moses reminds the Most High of his promise and his covenant. Listen, he says, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel your servants, to whom you swore by your own self, and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of, I give it to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. He reminds him, you all, the Most High chose someone he had already prepared and humbled to lead his people. And I'm going to show that to you in a second. But Moses' act caused the Most High to relent from the harm which he said he would do to our ancestors. Let's look at this. Let's go back to Numbers 12. And we see in verse 3, after Aaron and Miriam came against him, that Yah heard it. And it says, now the man Moses was very humble, more than all men who were on the face of the earth. How do you think he got that way? I can assure you that it did not happen overnight. It happened in the process of time. It happens when you are broken time and time again, because the Most High has used your circumstances to mold you and shape you into the vessel fit for his use. Aaron didn't have that experience. A lot of us won't go through the process. We see the tests and trials as too hard, too difficult, so we quit. Yes, they are hard. It hurts. And guess what? They are designed to humble you. But most people hate being uncomfortable. But you grow more during those years of being between a rock and a hard place. You can't run. You're forced to stay there and deal with it. And this is why I say the Most High sent Moses, because he had already prepared and humbled him for this assignment. Let's look at another example. We see here in 1 Samuel 13:14 that the prophet Samuel is talking to King Saul after Saul sinned. And he's telling him that his kingdom is not going to continue. Why? Saul was disobedient, and he feared the people more than he feared Yah. So Samuel told him that the Most High was going to replace him with a man after his own heart, a man who has already been commanded to be commander over his people. He's talking about David. Now you all, the Most High has commanded David to be commander over his people before David is anointed to be king. Are you getting this? While Saul was king, the Most High was already preparing David. What was he doing? What was David doing? Tending his father's sheep, learning how to protect and care for sheep as the Most High is molding and shaping him into the king he wanted him to be. Saul did not have those experiences. Saul was the type of king the people wanted. David was the type of king Yah wanted. But did you know, estimates say that Samuel anointed David 15 years before he actually became king. After he was anointed, he had to endure the most difficult years of his life. The king he was to replace was trying to kill him. So he spent a lot of time being humbled in the cave of Adullam. What are the lessons for us in this? Don't seek the limelight or try to go before you are sent. When the Most High is ready for you to be front and center, He will send you or send someone for you. Moses begged and pleaded for someone else to go. He started talking about all of his faults. Why? Because when you are called, you know your shortcomings, and Yah can certainly see all of your faults, but the people see the anointing. This is why you depend on Him and worship Him, because you know that it's not you. There's no doubt in your mind that He is the one doing the work through you. When Samuel came to anoint one of Jesse's sons as the future king, David didn't even know it. He was out tending sheep. So I hope you understand that these men were not perfect. They were not. But the Most High Himself dealt with their shortcomings. Why do I say don't seek the limelight though? Because when the attention comes and you're standing under that bright light, whatever cracks and blemishes you have will show. The grace that is given to those who are called serve as a covering. It does not mean you can do wrong and get away with it either. You're actually held to higher standards. If you remember, Moses couldn't even enter the promised land because he lost his temper and disobeyed. And David's sin brought calamity on his house and the kingdom. He lost 4 sons as a result. But when you seek the light, know that it will reveal what you are made of, wood or gold. Now let's continue on with the story about Moses, and I will continue the discussion on this topic, those called to lead Israel, during the live this coming Wednesday, Yah willing. All right, so Moses finally accepted his call after Aaron was given the task of serving as the spokesperson. So now we're looking at Exodus 4:19 through 23. He went back and told his father-in-law that he needed to return to Egypt so that he could see if his brethren were still alive. And Jethro told him to go in peace. Notice that he didn't tell his father-in-law what Yah had told him. There's a lesson we can learn from that as well. Don't tell too much too soon. So his father-in-law told him to go, and then the Most High begins to speak to Moses again. And he told him that all the men who had sought to kill him were dead. So Moses took his family. He goes back to Egypt with the rod that he had been given. But I want you to pay attention to what Yah says to Moses in verse 21. He says to him that I will harden Pharaoh's heart. He will not let the people go. And then he gives Moses the words that he is supposed to speak to Pharaoh. He wants Moses to tell Pharaoh, Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, let my son go that he may serve me. And then the Most High tells him to tell Pharaoh what would happen if he did not let Israel go. He said, indeed, I will kill your son, your firstborn. You all, did he not tell him what the outcome would be? He's telling him that his son would die for refusing to let the people go. The fulfillment of these words also served as a sign for the Egyptians. Now let's go back to this word firstborn. Yah said Israel was his firstborn. The question that came to mind is, how can Israel be his firstborn? And that's the same term used for Messiah. Let's look at that. Let's look at this excerpt from an article in Bible.org about this word firstborn. The word is translated from the Greek prototokos, and it's saying this term firstborn does not occur before the Septuagint around the 3rd century BC. So once again, we're dealing with the way this word has been translated. It goes on to say, thus the focus of the term in the Septuagint is primarily on priority of rank. The one who has all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities of an heir. One who enjoys a special relationship with Yah. It's not on priority in time or origin. This focus persists up to and into the time of the New Testament and provides, therefore, the most likely background to the meaning of the term there. Let's look at another source. This one comes from Bible Gateway, and it's saying this word firstborn normally would mean the oldest son. But it's saying this word is denoting also priority or supremacy. Israel was Yah's firstborn in accordance with Exodus 4:22, Jeremiah 31:9. As the firstborn son had special priority, Israel was privileged over other nations. So it's a preeminent position over others in relation to him. Now, this is why we see in Scripture that we are called the chosen people. It signifies special priority or the privilege of being over other nations. So this is how we can see that this word is applied to Israel and Messiah. It's talking about preferential treatment or being placed above those related to him. It's a preeminent position. We can say it's a title to indicate superiority. Now that's sure to get some folks riled up, but that's what this word means. So let's go back to the story. We're looking at Exodus 4:24 through 26. Moses is on the way back to Egypt with his family, and something happens on the way back to Egypt. And the way this reads is that Yah meets him and sought to kill him. When it says sought to kill him, though, a specific person isn't mentioned in the text, so it could have been Moses or Moses' son. It would make absolutely no sense for it to be Moses. Why would he call Moses to lead the people out of Egypt and then try to kill him? But if we keep reading, we see that this is connected to Moses' son who had not been circumcised, because the context says, then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at Moses' feet and said, surely you are a husband of blood to me. So he let him go. Then she said, you are a husband of blood because of the circumcision. So the instructions given to Abraham was that all of his male descendants were to be circumcised on the 8th day after their birth. And since this obviously had not been done by law, he was to be put to death. You can refer to Genesis 17:14. This is a strange passage, no doubt, but we can see here that no exceptions were being made for Moses' son. As the one chosen to lead the people, he had to lead in all things. Let's go on. Here we see in Exodus 4:27 through 31 that the Most High spoke to Aaron and told him to go into the wilderness to meet Moses. This is when Moses told him everything that the Most High had said to him, and then he showed him the sign. So in verse 29, we see that the two of them meet with the elders. Now keep in mind that Aaron was in Egypt, so the people knew him. Moses was not there. But they see Aaron speaking the words that Yah had given to Moses, and he's doing the signs. Do you see how easy it would be for them to see him as having equal authority with Moses? Again, this is not to say that Aaron's role as high priest was an insignificant role. It was not. It was not. So, over time, things change. And thankfully, many of us can say that we have grown and matured over time. But it was supposed to be Moses speaking to the people. Verse 31 tells us that they believed the words that were spoken to them, and they bowed their heads and worshiped. Now we're looking at Exodus 5:1-9, and Moses and Aaron went in and they told Pharaoh what the Most High had told them to say, that he needed to let the people go and that they needed to hold a feast unto him in the wilderness. And Pharaoh responds with, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go." And once again, they tell him, please let us go 3 days journey into the desert so that we can sacrifice to our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. So the king of Egypt is saying to them, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your labor. He's responding to them like they're slaves. And then he says, look, the people of the land are many now, and you make them rest from their labor. Now look at what he does. It says, so the same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, you shall no longer give the people straw to make brick as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, and you shall lay on them the quota of bricks which they made before. You shall not reduce it. Why does he do this? He says because they're idle. And that's why they're saying, let us go and sacrifice to our God. He said, let more work be laid on the men, that they may labor in it, and let them not regard false words. So he's calling the words spoken to him by Moses and Aaron false. Let's go on and see what happens. Now I'm going to skip ahead just a bit, but as you continue reading in the 4th chapter, you will see that the taskmasters did indeed make things worse for the people, and the officers of the children of Israel blamed Moses and Aaron. So Moses returns to the Most High, and he's like, why have you brought trouble on this people? Why is it you've sent me? He's saying, since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people. Neither have you delivered your people at all. Now stop and pause here. Didn't the Most High tell him in the beginning that Pharaoh would refuse to let the people go? So we see confirmation of his words happening here. Do you think Moses forgot what was said to him? Or was the pressure getting to him? As I said, these leaders are not going to be perfect. They are human, and they will have some flaws. But notice that this exchange is between Moses and the Most High. That's a lesson for us. Also, our ancestors were not going to be delivered right away. Yah said that. In fact, things got worse. Why? Egypt needed to see the power and might of the Almighty. Pharaoh said, why should I obey this God you're talking about? I don't know him. So the Most High has to bring him to his knees with a mighty hand. So in Exodus 6:1-13, the Most High responds to Moses, and I will highlight this. He begins by reminding him of who he is, letting him know he is the one who appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as the Almighty, but by his name, and some say Yahweh, some say Yahuwah, others say Yahweh. He was not known to them. So he wants Moses to know who he is, that he has established a covenant with Israel to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage in which they were strangers. Also, it's important for them to know that he has heard the groaning of the children of Israel whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and that he remembers his covenant. So he gives Moses a message to say to the children of Israel that he is going to bring them out from under the burdens of the Egyptians and rescue them from their bondage, and he's going to redeem them with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. The same thing will happen this time. He's wanting them to know that he's going to take them as his people and that he is their Most High, who will bring them out from under the burdens of the Egyptians and then bring them into the land that he swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that it would be given to them as a heritage. It is still our heritage. So he says to Moses, "Speak thus to the children of Israel." But it says, they did not heed Moses. Why? Because of anguish of spirit and cruel bondage. They had given up. They had lost hope. And family, a lot of our people are feeling the same way. So in the next session, we're going to look at the plagues, because the plagues will get the attention of Pharaoh. So again, join me for the next live this coming Wednesday, Yah willing. I'm going to share some more on those who are called to lead Israel. But please remember to hit the like button, share this message, and join me next time. Shalom, everyone.